Another report is dropped from Shams the Athletic that indicates the Sixers are going after OG Anunoby. And with all the reports, all the rumors, and all the videos that have been broken down about this on Sixers Digest, we decided to call Sean up here to sort of give us a breakdown on the Sixers' plan amongst all these reports and why he believes that the Sixers might actually land OG Anunoby with everything that's been going on. But Sean, welcome to the Raptors Digest. Welcome to this part of Digest Media. How's it going, sir?
Yeah, going well, and a hot start to the Sixers season from both the individual standpoint for growth of guys like Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid taking another leap after the MVP. This team is clicking in a way that I think a lot of people did not fully expect coming into the year. And the biggest outcome of that James Harden trade was to collect assets, stock the cabinet with potential draft picks and players to trade, and sit back and wait for the right trade opportunity. So I think this team overperforming and these players showing signs of progress puts the Sixers in the driving seat to make a significant move. Daryl Morey is a guy not afraid to make a splash, and OG Anunoby seems like a guy on his list of targets. So excited to get into it with you, Ben.
For sure. And there's been a multitude of reports that have sort of indicated the Sixers' interest, why they might potentially land them, given the cap situation, all the assets that you sort of brought up. The report that came out that's sort of initializing this discussion has come from Shams, basically saying that Zach LaVine and OG Anunoby, those are two names to keep an eye on as Philadelphia 76ers have been monitoring. So again, this mixed with sort of Morey's plan of opening that cap space and using that leverage to make a push for OG Anunoby at the trade deadline has a few Toronto Raptors fans, a little scared that we might get finessed, especially with the Pistons open up cap space and all these types of things. So, Sean, again, the Sixers have been good. They stole away Nick Nurse from us this offseason. Obviously, OG Anunoby.
Thankfully.
Let's not get into that at the start of this video. That's a controversial topic with Darko Rajalkovic here now at this point. But OG's in a little bit of a down year statistically. 14 points per game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, but still shooting 37% from the three-point line. Still one of the best defenders in the NBA. I know it's been a hot topic about, his minutes are down. That's why his points are down. But if you look at the per 36 numbers, again, his points are down. His efficiency is a little bit down along those lines. But still one of the league's premier 3-and-D guys. Sean, who can you guys offer? Who can you guys bring to the table? Why do you think this is a potential possibility versus the Pacers, the Kings, the Miami Heat, all these squads across the Knicks potentially trying to make a deal for OG Anunoby?
Yeah, so I don't think it's going to be a quiet market for OG if he truly is available. That this is the prototype 3-and-D, the complementary piece that is capable of doing a little more, but doesn't need these additional touches in the offense. For me, he's pretty much the exact archetype that any contender should be looking for. For starters with this question, I think you have to look right in the mirror and figure out what the Raptors are seeking. Do they want a slew of draft picks? That's where I think the Sixers' best position is. If they can repackage these picks that they got from the Clippers, which, by the way, are potentially very valuable picks. When you think about each of these guys, and while things are going great for the Clippers right now, but each of these guys in Kawhi, in Paul George, and James Harden are all past the prime of their career and have some significant injury concerns. So there's a real chance that all of a sudden a 2028 first-round pick from the Clippers is looking really enticing and a potential top pick. So if the Raptors are looking for some sort of rebuilding package, I do think that's the angle where these Sixers can play out. They can potentially throw in a guy like a Tobias Harris, who obviously is not that appealing from the on-court standpoint, especially this year, but you do get a little bit of cap relief by bringing that on. He is an expiring contract, and once again, the picks would be the prize of this deal. So for me, I kind of want more of a window on what the Raptors are looking for. I don't think it would be a win-now move by taking on players from the Sixers. I think it'd be much more in the direction of the young players, even potentially throwing in guys like a Jaden Springer, a Terquavion Smith, guys like that could be enticing. But I think the draft picks is the Sixers' cleanest lane that they have to run in as far as making an offer for OG.
Yeah. And Raptors fans, when you talk about the interest in terms of what the fans want, names like Keegan Murray get thrown out. Just had a video breaking down RJ Barrett, a potential package along those lines. Benedict Mathurin from the Indiana Pacers. But again, those are the players that are ideal, young archetypes, potential stars, they could develop into for a guy like OG Anunoby that personally, Raptors fans, a lot of us believe he is that sort of caliber of player, even though he's more of that role guy. He's had a slow stretch of games lately, so fans are a little bit lower on him as of recording, but, his value is out there. But obviously the realistic thing is he's an unrestricted free agent come this offseason. Leverage is an issue, and teams like the Philadelphia 76ers and the Detroit Pistons have a heck of a lot of cap space, or can open up a bunch of cap space this summer. So these GMs are trying to pounce and understand that his value isn't that high. So it's an issue. And then you also have the factors to deal with in regards to OG Anunoby wants a bigger role, whether it's in Toronto or elsewhere. And then frankly, this season, if you look at sort of the advanced numbers and all the stats, he's creating less. The percentage of his 2-point shots, 3-point shots have basically stayed the same, but his 2-point shots that are assisted on the season have actually gone up. So he's creating less shots for himself. Obviously, he's never been much of a facilitator for everyone else on the squad. So really, in terms of what OG Anunoby wants, the Raptors haven't really been able to deliver. So the value in terms of our leverage, in terms of what we can actually get back for him, is the issue. And we're praying Masai Ujiri is able to cook up some magic in terms of finessing some teams regarding trades, especially with the number of squads that are interested in making a deal. But you mentioned a few guys, in terms of the Sixers roster that could potentially come back. Tobias Harris, again, is just a downgraded OG Anunoby, so it's not all. He's also a free agent come the end of the offseason. Probably a guy that's going to go into free agency, get a certain type of money from a team. Not that interested in him unless it's like salary work, maybe taking a flyer and him playing better for us. But we played against you guys in the Sixers in the playoffs multiple times. We've seen Tobias Harris and what he does kind of during the big moments. But you mentioned Jaden Springer and then also Terquavion Smith, because I looked into the stats a bit, and particularly Terquavion is a guy that hasn't played for you guys, but I know you've been talking him up a bunch. What's the deal with Springer and Terquavion? Are those guys that Raptors fans should just scoff at and say, hey, the Sixers are giving us your garbage, or are they actually players with some value?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're giving you garbage. That I think both of these guys have a bright future. The Sixers team is deep this year. That when you look at the rotation, that's really been the reason why. That there's guys like Robert Covington, who's only playing like 8 minutes per game with the Sixers. Guys like Marcus Morris, who has struggled to kind of have consistent minutes. So Jaden Springer's really found himself buried. He has had some flashes in the moments that he has played. He had a big block against Tatum where he met him at the rim. His weak side protection is the real deal, which is a surprising characteristic in a guy who's like a 6'4" guard. His creation ability's gotten a little better, and he had a really strong performance the past 2 years at the G League. I would like to see him get more of an opportunity to prove that at the NBA level. His offensive game is still a work in progress, but at this very moment, he's an NBA quality defender, one of the best lateral movers and just perimeter defenders in the NBA. I think he is eventually going to grow into a little bit of that Alex Caruso archetype of player. Not quite to that level of Caruso, but I do think that style of player is what you're getting in Jaden Springer. And it's probably about 2 to 3 more years before he's a real deal contributor out on an NBA level, but a guy that I do like quite a bit. And then Terquavion Smith on a 2-way contract has not gotten an opportunity yet. Thankfully, these Sixers have been very healthy. He's a guy that I think if there is a knock or an injury to Tyrese Maxey, who has to miss a couple games, that's when we see Terquavion Smith exposed and see what he can really do. I've been high on him for a couple years. He's a guy that I think kind of got the whole draft progress wrong, that I think if he went out after his freshman year, he would have been a fringe first-round pick, and frankly, in my mind, deserved to be. He went back for his sophomore year of college, had pretty much a similar year. They brought in Jarkel Joyner as a transfer, who I think was really repetitive in their styles of play, and that really dropped Terquavion Smith's just draft stock as a whole. Went undrafted and hasn't really gotten a true chance with the Sixers yet, but he's dropping 40-point bombs down to the G League. He's taken over. He's got self-creation, and he's got a ton of joy that he plays with, too. That there's a very Maxey-like energy in his game that I quite like to see as well. So I do think Terquavion is a guy. I would love to have him stick around with the Sixers. I do see him being very buried in this rotation, so I would have no problem moving on from him if that means getting a better play in return. And obviously, you have to give up to get something in this league. So I wouldn't mind packaging him in there. It's not obviously a centerpiece of a deal for a player of the caliber of OG Anunoby, but I do think Terquavion Smith is a team that a potential rebuilding team like the Raptors or a young team, depending on the direction that they go from each of these moves. I do think he's a potential guy. And I do want to hear what the Raptors' kind of full outlook for this plan is. What is the desired return for OG? Is it a guy that keeps you in contention, keeps you in this fringe conversation? Or is it maybe take a step back to go 2 steps forward by collecting assets and things like that?
Well, Sean, that's a question that I think a lot of Raptors fans would like to hear, probably Raptors players would like to hear, and probably Masai Ujiri is just waiting to sort of come to him, because the decisions that he's been making lately have been questionable in terms of direction. I mean, things were a mid-level team, and then we deal away our first-round draft pick last season for Jakob Poeltl, and
Right.
things just don't really come together. It's been something that, we get the logic behind it. We get why Masai Ujiri sort of made those moves, but frankly, they haven't worked out. Even though Raptors fans may have gotten excited, and even myself, pretty pumped about the Poeltl trade, about some of the deals that we had, particularly just a couple years ago when this similar young core group, obviously we had Nick Nurse at that point, and obviously Fred VanVleet instead of Dennis Schroeder, but a very similar roster. Took to you guys, obviously Embiid stepped on Scotty's foot and then had a few injuries and flopping all over the court, but we can dive into that in another another discussion. But we took you guys to 6, right? With a young group, up and coming. Scotty has taken his game to a whole nother level. The potential, the promise was there, and it feels like Masai Ujiri's sort of been waiting for that lightning in a bottle to come back. But our role players have underperformed. I already know the comment section's probably out here roasting Jaden Springer, Terquavion Smith, saying we don't want the Sixers garbage because we know how bad we've been trying to sell the Malachi Flynns of the world, our sort of bench pieces and potential trade packages. So it's similar to sort of those guys, even though it's good to learn about those younger pieces. So again, the Raptors, without a real guarantee we have our draft pick this year, things could get messy. We've been losing a lot of games lately, so that top 6 protected pick could lead us to go down that rebuilding path, but no one's really high on this draft this season. We have some vets, we have some players, and if the packages aren't right, I could see Masai Ujiri. I don't see a world where both OG and Pascal end up getting the $40 million per year plus max contracts this offseason, but goes more the route of, a deep cut and a Rudy Gay trade where we were mid-level team. We took a swing that failed in Rudy Gay, and then we traded him for the likes of Gravis Vasquez, Chuck Hayes, Patty P, and John Salmons, and then completely turned around our franchise for a year. So I'm of the belief of the way the front office is operating, that's kind of the direction that they're looking for, the swing. But Sean, to end this video off, to sort of, leave it on a note, I have the Sixers roster pulled up, the stats in terms of guys. Obviously Springer, Terquavion are pieces that are nice add-ons, sweeteners and a potential OG Anunoby deal. The picks you mentioned could be the centerpiece, but you're Daryl Morey. You have one call with Masai Ujiri right now. What are you offering for OG Anunoby? Your best offer, it's a yes or no. You can't negotiate. What are you offering from the Philadelphia 76ers side?
Yeah, my yes or no. So for starters, once again, it is those draft picks. That's
Okay.
the lead. That is the pitch to me. That is the desire for what the Raptors should be looking for in my mind. I think you offer 3 first-round picks with them primarily coming from the Clippers. 3 first-round picks, and then you find a way to match the salary with a Tobias Harris would likely be the outlook that I look for, just because I think there's no need for Tobias Harris on the Sixers team, if we're being frank, that I do think, especially if you're getting OG, that's a huge upgrade. And I think from the Raptors perspective, that you should look at that as that's money off the books, that you take half a season of Tobias Harris and that's $40 million off your cap. The Raptors would have to tie in a couple things to make the contracts work. But I think you throw in Tobias Harris and then 1 to 2 fringe rotation players, whether that is a Jaden Springer, even a Furkan Korkmaz. So
B-ball Paul.
if you lock me, what's B-ball ball? That one's going to take some fun. And I believe B-ball Paul, amazingly, is one of 2 Sixers to have a no trade clause for this year. He could waive that, of course. Yeah, that was in that when the Jazz put together that restricted free agency that they were really trying to get the Sixers not to match, with including the clauses like have to make it past the first round of the playoffs, which of course is not going to happen for the Utah Jazz. Hat tip move to Danny Ainge. But yeah, I don't think B-ball Paul will be in the trade. I think my official offer to lock in 3 first-round picks, Tobias Harris, Jaden Springer, and Furkan Korkmaz. You throw me OG and a little extra salary, and we have a deal.
Okay. Honestly, that sounds a lot better than I think a lot of the offers we've been seeing online and the deals. The Pacers just name Harden, basically nothing else. So, like to see it. Daryl Morey, obviously Masai Ujiri, they've had trade negotiations in the past, haven't gotten something done, but I feel like the Raptors, a move has to come. Changes are coming for this team, whether it's a full rebuild, whether it's just a retool, or whether we trade for Zach LaVine and try to win now. We'll see what ends up happening with the squad. But Sean, pleasure having you on, my guy. Folks, if you want to check out, obviously we don't have a lot of Sixers fans, I imagine, watching this video here right now, but definitely check out Sixers Digest if you want to keep up to date with a division rival and things along those lines. But you guys are the best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel. Go subscribe to Sixers Digest. Sean, you got any last words in this vid?
Not really. I will just say that the Raptors cannot afford to go past this trade deadline without moving both OG and Pascal. I think that would be a huge mistake if they don't elect to just pull the trigger and make a trade. They'd run into a similar situation where Fred VanVleet walked for free and they didn't get anything in return like this past offseason. I just don't think that's a successful way to run a franchise. So as much as it hurts and as much as it's tough to swallow, I do think the Raptors need to step up and get in that deal zone without over asking. Curious if that actually happens, but I think
Give
that
us
Raptors
Maxi.
fans should be not quite on that one, but I do think Raptors fans should be voting for rooting for a trade here.
Good stuff. Anyways, cheers.